What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cap Show. UFC 306 was iconic. Even though Sugar Sean O'Malley took a dive and lost to Merab, I can't believe it. I mean, Sugar Sean came out, looked flat. He was the main event, the main attraction. He was saying all these things before up into the fight, saying he could be bigger than Conor McGregor. That's a long shot now. It's like McGregor doesn't fumble the bag in this type of big event. We remember when McGregor fought back in 2015 against Jose Aldo. We remember how that went. It was about a 10-second fight. McGregor knocked him out, and that was really the pinnacle of Conor McGregor's career right there. And then he goes on, he becomes double champ. Then he goes on to fight Mayweather. Then he loses to Khabib. And then ever since he got all these millions, he hasn't been the same fighter. But Sugar Sean, I get it. He wants to go up to 145 now. But I just think right now with Merab, that L, I would love to see maybe a rematch. But it didn't look like the Sugar Sean that we're accustomed to see. You know, Sugar Sean normally sharp, on top of everything, doesn't just get taken down so easily. Merab just did what he wanted to do this whole fight. And yes, I understand round 3. I think Sugar Sean won that round. But, I mean, as far as like the UFC 306, the Sphere, I think it capitalized big time. I mean, it was trippy. It looked like they were really in like an anime film movie. It really did. It was like, holy cow, these UFC fighters probably feel like they're actually in a movie. And my octagon chicks were all dressed up like trippy. It was crazy. It was actually pretty cool the way the UFC orchestrated all this. I mean, they said they're only going to do this one and done, but the way they did it, it made me think, man, why not? Why not Dana White? Why not the UFC come up with some solutions and say, hey, let's run it back sometime next year? Even though they probably did end up losing money in the end because it was so expensive and tickets did not sell out, I don't think. So pretty crazy, right? But, I mean, the main event lived up to the hype. But shout out to Valentina. I told you guys to go Valentina over Alexa Grasso. It just made sense to me. She was just more battle tested, and I think the experience played a huge factor. That's why I went Shevchenko. That's ultimately why I went her. I just think she was one of the greatest woman fighters of all time. Not the greatest, but she fought Amanda Nunes twice, like I said before. Lost to her twice by decision in the trenches, and really both those fights were super close. So shout out to Valentina. I knew that was going to happen. And shout out to Diego Lopez. Oh my gosh, this dude is a killer. I knew he was going to beat Brian Ortega. I just think Brian Ortega is a one-dimensional fighter. Even though Ortega's going to go up, I believe, to 155, it's just like, yes, he's a great grappler. He's a great submission artist. But other than that, it's like his stand-up is trash. Like, straight up, I mean, we saw that in the Max Holloway fight versus Brian Ortega a couple years ago. Literally, during the transition, it was just like Max Holloway literally taught him what to do and how to protect your face. Like, Brian Ortega, I thought for sure he would learn from his mistakes over time, but his stand-up game is not good whatsoever. But Diego Lopez, this dude's young, this dude's hungry, and he's ready to fight at any point, any time. So I love that about Diego Lopez, and we'll eventually see Diego Lopez in a championship bout. I truly believe that. I mean, this guy is quick. He's sharp. He's got one of the fastest hands I've seen in the UFC to date right now. It's like one of them things where it's like, holy cow, bro. Like, that was a crazy combination. I mean, we saw it against Ortega over the weekend. He threw that 1-2 combo. It was just like, holy cow. Ortega had no answer whatsoever. I thought Diego Lopez was going to win by knockout in the first round. That's how it looked. But I think Diego Lopez and his trainers probably told him, hey, look, bro, like, let's fight smart here. We don't need to go all out in the first 2 minutes and then gas out when we're in the mid-second round fight. We're in a 3-round fight, so there's no need to gas out in the middle of the second round. Like, if you want to become a championship fighter in the UFC, you're going to have to learn how to fight 5-round fights. The 4th and 5th round of the championship rounds, and typically that's when they get tired. So, like, the fatigue sets in, the real human being sets in. Like, fatigue, that's just part of life. Like, you're going to get fatigued. You're going to get tired. It's how you're going to push through that adversity. How are you going to push through the fatigue? Are you going to work through it, or are you just going to let it take over you? I mean, we got fighters like Chimaev. Like, you know, he gets really gassed out. I mean, he was gassed out in the Gilbert Burns fight, you know, mid-round in the second round. It was just like you could tell he was just breathing heavy, and that was only a 3-round fight. So, like, a 5-round fight, it's completely different. And speaking of Chimaev, man, like, yes, he's fighting Robert Whittaker next month. It's just like one of them things, and I'm hearing speculations that Chimaev can't even fight in the USA. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but I guess there's a source that says Chimaev is linked with the terrorists, dude. Yeah, straight up. Like, I can't make this up. Like, he's linked with the terrorists. That's why he hasn't really fought in the USA. I mean, let's be honest here. He's always fighting in Saudi Arabia or overseas cards. You never see Chimaev fight in the USA. You just typically don't, dude. Like, you haven't in a while, right? Like, in the fight with Robert Whitaker coming up next month. That's not in the USA. That's overseas, dude. Like, straight up. So, like, there's some ties somewhere that he might know of a terrorist, dude. And, like, the USA's over here like, no, bro. We're not messing around with that. Like, in Chimaev, like I said before, his past, missing weight, pulling out of fights. It's just like, well, Chimaev, if you're a true professional, let's see what you're about here. Like, linked to terrorists, bro, I hope that's false news. I hope it's fake news. I really do. Because if that's true, that is crazy to me. But UFC 306 lived up to the hype, lived up to the expectations. We saw the GOAT, John Jones, ringside. He was with freaking Alex Pereira. I never would imagine that. They were talking it up, chalking it up. Who knows? I think Alex Pereira wants to spar with John Jones. Let's be honest here. If that fight ever did happen, John Jones would win because he would take Alex Pereira down. Like, plain and simple. Like, John Jones is an elite grappler, elite wrestler, and that's what he does. He took Daniel Cormier down, who's an Olympian wrestler. We're talking Olympian wrestler here, the highest of the highs. Like, top-notch wrestler. John Jones made him look like a JV, junior varsity wrestler. Like, that's crazy to me. So, like, people want to speculate and say Alex Pereira versus John Jones. That fight's not going to happen. I'll tell you what fight will happen, though, when John Jones beats Stipe in November at UFC 309. What a card that is. Michael Chandler is fighting Charles Oliveira as well, which I am very shocked. Like, I cannot believe Conor McGregor fight did not happen with Michael Chandler. That was supposed to happen back June. Are we ever going to see Conor McGregor in the octagon again? Like, he's got 2 fights left on the UFC contract, and they're talking about him coming back, sometime in the spring of 2025, but that's what they always say. They always want to speculate, say this and that. It's just, I think it's a long shot to see McGregor back. I really do. McGregor's involved in so many different things. Bare knuckle. He's got his whiskey business. He's just involved in so many different things where the last thing Conor McGregor's on his mind is training and getting ready for a fight. Let's just be honest here. McGregor's a multi-millionaire, going to be a billionaire eventually down the line. So it's just like for McGregor, weighs out the pros and cons. If you got over $500 million in your bank account, you're not going to wake up as hungry as you did when you were dead broke. I'll tell you that right now. Like, there's differences, there's levels to that. So, like, for McGregor, he's waking up on his yacht, like, just living the American dream, quote unquote. Like, and that's why a lot of people hate McGregor. He's kind of arrogant as well, but at the same time, like, McGregor was getting welfare assistance checks from the government back in, like, 2007, bro. Like, this is, like, real life. Like, he used to be, bro, getting government assistance to becoming a multi-millionaire in this society we live in today. So, like, McGregor beat the odds. He beat all that. So, I just think the hunger for McGregor, the passion, isn't there as it used to be back in, like, 2015 time. It just isn't. 10 years ago, decade, that was a hungry McGregor. When McGregor fought Chad Mendes, that was the hungry McGregor. When he battled back through adversity, when he kept getting taken down and ground and pound, he got back up and knocked Chad Mendes out in the late second round. Like, that's the McGregor that we're used to seeing, but I don't see that anymore. I would love that. McGregor's still the biggest draw in the UFC right now. But UFC 309 with John Jones, Bo Nickal's on that card. I can't wait, man. Bo Nickal fighting Paul Craig. I think Bo Nickal is going to be a UFC champion one day. Bo Nickal, this guy's smart. He's got a great team around him. Yes, he's fighting at 185. That weight division is pretty stacked, but at the same time, we're talking about Bo Nickal, young up-and-comer, hungry, an elite wrestler. So I'd much rather you be elite wrestler coming to the UFC than elite striker because he can work on his striking. You can't just over a course of 1 or 2 years become an elite wrestler. This is from like when you were a little kid, like 4 or 5 years old, bro. Like straight up just been wrestling your whole life up into the UFC. Like that's Bo Nickal right here. We're talking elite grappling, and he's got some hands too, and I hope he improves on that aspect. But if Bo Nickal wins again, give him a top 10 candidate at UFC at 185, at that weight division, 185. Give Bo Nickal a top 10 guy. Why not? If I'm Dana White, Bo Nickal came to the UFC and literally dominated everybody he's been involved. They even gave him crap at UFC 300 with Cody Brimage where it lasted 2 rounds, but he still choked Cody out. So, like, people were just, like, dogging on Bo. But at the end of the day, man, Bo Nickel's going to be UFC champion one day. You guys mark my words. But UFC 306, the Sphere, what a time, man. It sucks that Sugar Sean, the main event, man, just kind of fumbled the bag, really. Everybody, including myself, went Sugar Sean by knockout. I thought that was going to be the case. I thought for sure Sugar Sean would just be tuned in and locked in, dude. He was not locked in whatsoever. It looked like literally Sugar Sean took a dive, took $2 million dive to lose this fight. It just, he looked out of sync, dude. The footwork was off. The movements were off for Sugar Sean. Like, the movements that I'm used to seeing Sugar Sean do were just like, if a guy would shoot for a takedown, he would immediately know what to do. Like, he was just kind of stuck in sand, dude. Like, he was just slow from the get-go. So I just think Sugar Sean needs to bounce back. If he's going to move out to 145, you know, what, he wants to fight Max Holloway at 145? Like, bro, you don't want those problems. Like, Max Holloway, the best stand-up guy in the UFC, even though that would be a great fight, Max Holloway and Sugar Sean O'Malley. But, you know, I think Max Holloway's going to beat Topuria next month for that belt at 145 to retain his belt. Max Holloway's a former champion. Shout out to Max Holloway, one of my favorite UFC fighters of all time. This dude is a dog. I love him. Fights with passion, fights with everything. But I just think in this card specifically, I'm telling you right now, Sugar Sean, he does have superstar status. However, it's not Conor McGregor status. You're not making as much money as Conor McGregor. You're not as famous as Conor McGregor. Let's just be honest here. And if Sugar Sean wants to go to that level, he's going to have to become champion again at 135. And then if he moves up to 145, become champion there. It's just going to be a long shot. It really is. I hope the best for Sugar Sean. I do think he's going to bounce back. He's very young. I think he's going to be in the spotlight for a very long time as a UFC fighter. I think that's going to generate millions of dollars already. He already has millions of dollars, but I just think if he continues to get better, obviously he came out flat, but the best fight of all weekend out of this card was definitely Diego Lopez. The guy that I tuned in the most, where I'm just like, all right, this guy's locked in. This guy's ready to go to the next level, and that's Diego Lopez. I'm telling you right now, this guy's quick. This guy's fast. He's got it all. He can really do it all in the octagon, and that's what you want as a UFC fighter. You don't want a guy who's just one-dimensional, is a one-trick pony, because even if you do end up become champion for a one-trick pony, you're eventually going to lose. That's just how the game goes. Like, you're just going to have to be good at everything in all aspects of UFC, of MMA, of martial arts. That's what you're going to have to do. That's why John Jones is the GOAT. John Jones can wrestle. He can stand. He can throw crazy leg kicks. He can throw crazy elbows. He can do it all. He could choke you out. We saw that in the Lyoto Machida fight back when John Jones first came on the scene. Like, all different types of stuff. That's just an example. But Diego Lopez, man, he's the future, man. I'm telling you right now. He's going to be champion one day. Same thing as Bo Nickel. But we got some big cards coming up. Like I said, UFC 309, John Jones, Stipe. Then we got the co-main, Michael Chandler versus freaking Charles Oliveira. I can't wait. That's a rematch. We saw that fight, you know, a couple years ago. And really, Michael Chandler had Charles Oliveira in a deep, deep water, in a deep situation where he could have literally knocked Charles Oliveira out, but Charles Oliveira survived. The heart of a champion, he survived in that. Then he ended up knocking Michael Chandler out early in the second round in their first fight. So it's going to be a rematch. They're going to run it back. I think Michael Chandler in the second fight against Charles Oliveira, he's going to have to pick his spots better, because Charles understands what Michael Chandler's about. He understands that this guy is explosive. He understands that this guy is super fast, super athletic. How's he going to do to counter it? And I think Charles Oliveira throws a lot of good leg kicks, and that's what you do to counter Michael Chandler. But I think Michael Chandler needs to come in with a different game plan against Charles Oliveira if he wants to get the win and really just elevate his career right now in the UFC. I think he's a little bit under 500 right now for Michael Chandler in the UFC currently. But if he wants to win against Charles Oliveira, I think he's going to have to, I know it sounds crazy, but you're going to have to do the old traditional basic 101 ground and pound. That's what you're going to have to do. Do not get submitted by Charles Oliveira. He's a black belt. He can easily submit you at any time, but you're going to have to take that chance, because I think stand-up-wise, Charles Oliveira is going to figure Michael Chandler out again and knock him out. So, like, what's it going to be? I can't wait for that fight. UFC 306 in the Sphere was trippy, was iconic. It was epic. Shout out to John Jones in attendance. I can't wait to see the GOAT fight yet again at the end of this year. It's the UFC. It's the Clown with Cow show. Let's go!